page 172, we're in the middle of a quote from the Sefer HaIkarim, or some call it the Sefer HaIkrim, who was amongst the Jewish philosophers and intellectuals within a context of Torah. Hence, the Sefer was received by Klal Yisrael in a positive way. And what does he say? He says that he talks about the advantage to the human being, and of course to the Jewish person, over the other species, the inanimate, the vegetation, and the living. This is what we're in the middle of quoting. So we're in the middle of a quote. So let's go. It's 172. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines from the bottom. The fourth to the last word on the line. Uvezehu mevayer. Uvezehu mevayer. Whoever has, please mute your thing, please. Uvezehu mevayer. And with this idea that the human being outdoes any of the other species, he explains, Maamar Rabbi Chaim Dalfin, a teaching, a saying, a quote of the Chachamim, the sages in the Gemara and Eruvin. Maamar Rabbi Chaim, it's a teaching of Rabbi Chaim. What does Rabbi Chaim say? There is a pasuk in Iyov, in Job, chapter 35, I think verse 11, and it goes like this: Malfeinu mi bahamois oretz. You have taught us more so than the animals of the earth. Umeoif hashamayim, and from the birds of the heaven. Yichakmeinu, you have given us wisdom. What is going on over there in Iyov? This is a continuation of several verses that preceded it, where man, Iyov is all about mankind, man's complaints, and to learn from Iyov, stop complaining. He lost so many children, he had such hardships, and nevertheless, he came out strong. So Iyov in general is a very important sefer to understand and to build our bitachon. That's why Iyov was written, not to make us morbid and broken. Here is a person who is a godly servant, and what does he get as a reward? That he loses his children. God forbid. That's not the purpose. It's to learn from him, to have strong bitachon and emunah. So there are verses earlier in chapter 30 and 34 and earlier where man is complaining and he's arguing that, he deserves better. So Iyov says, Malfeinu. The Malfeinu here, the root of this word Malfeinu is Elef. A'alefcha. There is A'alefcha Chochma. We've learned this before. There's a verse, I've taught you Chochma. A'alefcha Bina. I've taught you understanding. So Elef, we translate as 1,000, right? And then there's Aluf, like in the army, right? But there's also a word Elef, meaning teaching, smartness, cleverness. From the word El Alufcha, Malfeinu, you have given us man such understanding that's greater than the animals of the earth. Umeoif hashamayim yichakmeinu, and you have made us humans smarter than the birds of the heaven. So the Ikrim says like this. He's pointing out to man, what are you complaining about? I've given you something that the birds don't have and the animals of the earth don't have. But you, human being, has it. What is that? Intelligence, wisdom, chokhmah, intellect. And therefore, use your intellect for understanding God's richness and humanity and creation, and stop complaining and live life to the fullest and go on. That's the context of the verse over there. You can look it up. There are many commentators, but that's basically the context. Comes along Rabbi Yochanan in the Gemara in Eruvin 100. Maamar Rabbi Yochanan, excuse me. So Rabbi Yochanan, on this verse, he expounds the following. Quote, if the Torah was not given, we would have learned and known tznius mechatul, we quoted it yesterday, modesty from a chatul, a cat, v'gozel minamola, and thievery, stealing, robbery, gozel, gzela, minamola, from an ant. We would know these issues from these two animals. So, but the fact is, the Torah teaches us, it says, lo sigzoil. So we don't derive how to be modest from a cat. We would have if the Torah would have not been given. So, imke, go to the next line. Imke, therefore, Hatei, what we understand from Rabbi Yochanan's interpretation is that the living, the animal, im shehu chomri, even though it is material, very material, harihu noita yoser el milas hanafoshes. It tends to be more on the spiritual side. Remember, we mentioned yesterday, and there are certain species that by their nature, they're more nafshizdik, soul-like, soulful, soul-sensitive. The Rebbe says animals have that, and we discussed it, had a good discussion about it. And I thought, it's very important, that whole idea, and then Moshe commented very nicely to me privately on the WhatsApp, that this is a reason, and Hillel said it also in class, people bond with their animals. Here it is. Why? Because they find in the animals, because animals are milas nafshios. It's not on the side, Yoni, of milas chumrius, of corporeality and coarseness and grubkeit and bodybuilding, two bodybuildings, LA Fitness and all that nonsense. Right? You want to be strong? Okay, exercise. You must go to a club. Well, if you need to, you need to. Well, what's with tznius? One time, I got a free membership while I was down in Florida a few years ago for LA Fitness. So I thought, I would go early on and hide myself in a corner and do some exercise because I didn't have equipment by my son where I was staying. I went there and I ran out and never went back again because, even though I went early, half of the people are half undressed, both male and females. So it wasn't for me, and I checked out. So one has to be careful when they're doing exercise to be in a mode of tznius. And I don't want to elaborate, but that's a very important point because we're talking about here learning tznius from a chatul, from a cat, right? Koshke, needless to say, to learn tznius from the Torah. So Rabbi Yochanan says, and this is why the verse in Iyuv is very supportive of Rabbi Yochanan's thought, that animals have this refinement, and we would have learned tznius from the animals. So this brings out the virtue from animals. Nevertheless, the human being is even greater. Let's continue inside. Now, these are animals that have a natural bodily sensitivity. But then there are pikrin, the shrewd animals, the fox, not only, and the like. Certain animals, not only by nature do they gravitate towards the spiritual refinement side, but they also, you see, intelligence in their behavior. We call that hapikochin, the pikchus, the cleverness and shrewdness of certain animals. Yesh bahen seichel, they have some amount of intellect. Hanitaysev lem izman lizman. Guess what? It's very interesting. I don't know how you can prove this, but the Rebbe says it. I'm sure it can be proven. Their seichel is increased from time to time. So, I guess the idea of training an animal, maybe that's what it means, training the animal, and then the animal can do, I guess, I don't know, more acrobatics and more stick and more, or wait a minute, the dog, training the dog to be for the blind person, or now the training the dogs for smelling and finding terrorists and things like that. So you see, again, again, you don't know if that's an instinctual train. You don't know if the training is touching the instincts. I don't know. The instincts, and from that, the dog is able to sniff out and find the bombs and the terrorists and the issues. Or is it coming because of their intelligence? Here he's saying, Yonason, here he's saying that two things. One is the sensitivity, natural sensitivity of animals, and number two, he's talking about the cleverness, the pikchus shebachayis. So that is identifying within the animal their shrewdness, their seichel. And he says, Hani toisev lehem izman ulizman. You hear, see that word, Yonason? Hani toisev. Their pikchus, their shrewdness and cleverness is increased as time goes on if you work with it. This is why this verse in Iyov. What? Yes?
You said hooray. You said hooray. It's Hatei. You said hooray.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So therefore, Iyov quotes this verse as musar, as scolding and proving to man, li'adam, and he goes back to the quote from Yeshaya, from the Haftorah of Shabbos Chazoin, the Yisrael, lo yoda, ami lo yizbainen. Israel did not know, my nation didn't meditate. In other words, from the verse in Iyov, guys, from the verse in Iyov, we see clearly the advantage of the human being over an animal, even a shrewd animal. And nevertheless, you guys are not listening, and you're being, you're doing what you're not supposed to. So that's the proof and the scolding that Yeshaya when he scolds us, the Eden, to do tshuva, he says that's the way the Rebbe is interpreting Yeshaya's scolding as not just behave better. He's saying, you have one up on the animals. You have real intelligence, not just an acquired intelligence. That's the whole kesher over here. Avo, let's continue. Imzem harei hamadaber hu muvdo. Nevertheless, the medaber, the fourth species, which is called the speaking species, i.e. humanity, humans, who muvda legamri mehadoimim soimeyachlau, is completely separate from the three domains, the inanimate, the vegetation, the living. Umehadoimim befrat, and especially the human species is so far from the inanimate. Nevertheless, now remember, all of this, he began this paragraph quoting the Pasuk, when Hashem, David HaMelech is criticizing those philosophers and says, Hashem bends his ears, he doesn't hear, he'll hear you. And they argued not, right, as we discussed at length. So now he goes, and he asked the question, Hillel, why the ears and why the eyes? Why does David, quote, use those two limbs to make his analogy? So now the Rebbe is summing it up. Listen. And he says, nevertheless, through seeing, Riyah, Riyah brings together, joins together the inanimate with man's intellect, right? You see a stone, you see a rock, you think about it, You see, where can I get the minerals? Are there minerals here? You're talking about a rock that's inanimate, but your eyes see it, and it triggers your mind to think about what can be done and what is the status of this rock, and that's the inanimate. And this is a rhetorical remark. And although this joining of seeing, of re'iyah, with the rock, with the inanimate, is not as though, don't think for a moment that the stone, the brick, the even, or the chayma, or the wall that you see, is found with poyel mamish, in actuality, b'seichel adam, in your mind. K'moy shehi nimtza guf mamosh even b'tfisas yad. As it is when you pick up a rock by holding it and grabbing it, tfisas hayad, you got the rock in your hand. You have the rock. It's in your hand. Are you going to tell me, Moshe, are you going to tell me that when I see a rock, the rock is in my head? No, the rock's not in my head. The idea of the rock is in my head. The thought of the rock, of the stone, is in my head. But the stone itself is not in my head. Where you pick it up with your hand, it's in your hand. It's in your hand. So this is a rhetorical question that the Rebbe is asking. So seemingly, the Rebbe is saying, I'm trying to prove that seeing is so powerful that it can bring together two opposites, i.e., the human and the inanimate, right? Category number 1 and category number 4 of the 4 domains. And his counter argument is, but you don't have it physically there. It's only the idea. Whereas if you take it with your hand, which remember we mentioned earlier, this is called koyach hatnua. The movement, the power of movement actually has the rock in the hand. That's his counter argument, his rhetorical remark. And now he refutes it. And he says, Mikol Mokoim, nevertheless, Harei mitztayer v'nechkach b'sichlon. He says, you're right. There's no physical stone in your head. But there is, when you look at the stone and you understand the stone and all that, you have made mitztayer, comes to the word seer, a picture in the mind's eye, v'nechkach, very powerful word, hakika, and it's been engraved b'sichloi, in your intellect. You know, something that's engraved is very different than just being written, right? Writing is ink, separate from a paper. On a paper, could be erased. What about hakika? Hakika is in the stone, coming from the stone. This is explained also at length in Chasidus. I don't want to go into it right now. So the idea of hakika is a much deeper impact. The impression of hakika is in a separate category in comparison to writing. Okay? So the Rebbe says, listen to this. You're right, that physically when you hold a rock, you have a rock. But guess what? What do you have from holding a rock? Nothing. We're not talking about we're comparing, remember, the movement of the hand holding the rock versus understanding the rock. And the Rebbe says, as far as hakika is concerned, as far as it making an impression in you, where it becomes part of you, like it's engraved in you, from you, that's only when you see it and you think about it, and understand it. You work to understand it. Holding it, yeah. So, we could say like, the Alter Rebbe has a Maamar, and the Rebbes afterward expound on it. I mentioned this a few years ago. It says that the relationship, in Shir HaShirim, where Shlomo speaks about the relationship of us with Hashem, he used a lot of metaphors. So one of the metaphors he uses there is Rayosi, Tamosi, right? My friend, my lover, my different adjectives to express the connection. So one of the examples is given that there is the hug, there is the kiss, and then there is the piercing eyes that two doves look at each other. And it's used, Shlomo Melech employs that as well. So Chasidus, the Alter Rebbe, in different Maamarim says that that's even deeper than the hug and the kiss. And he explains it at length. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means that you're so deeply attached when you look into each other's eyes without hugging each other and without kissing each other. Did you understand? Now go ask someone in the world out there, they'll tell you, one second, Hillel, a hug is gewaldig, a kiss is even better. Go tell them, well, just looking at each other is really deeper. They'll think you're out of it. And I'm talking about not the Goyish world, the Jewish world, the Torah world. Comes along Chasidus. This is why you have to learn Chasidus. Only Chasidus you're going to find this. That really, if you think about it, the looking of two people into each other's eyes is the deepest bond. Why? Because it's coming from a deep pnimius. A hug, it's a gewaldige Zach. It feels great. Give me a hug. And we need to do that. A rabbi should, from time to time, hug his congregants. The males. What?
The eyes are the window to the soul.
Right. But so I'm saying a hug is powerful. A kiss is also powerful. There's a Chasidus shekush. Two people see each other. They can say goodbye, say hello. There's the whole idea. I mean, today we're in the Corona environment, and Hill has already brought to our attention that there's maybe they're going to forbid shaking in hands forever. And I sent him a reference to that he asked about. Anyway, on that topic. And even a kiss is brought down in Kabbalah and Chasidus, and the shikin is peh b'peh, mouth to mouth, and it's coming from the pnimius. It's the pnimius, but nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe says that the tamosi, the looking, the piercing of the dove, one into the other, touches the deepest. Okay, why? What? Give me one. Yes.
I was just going to say real quick. A couple of years ago, when Rabbi Michal Twersky was here in the neighborhood, for the winter, so I heard him speak once, and he said about how a person can hug with his eyes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very clever.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, Michal Twersky is a chassid, and I'm sure he learned the Alter Rebbe. He comes from the Alter Rebbe, but that's another nekuda. It's a very interesting, good point that you mentioned. But that's a different. I wasn't discussing that, a hug with the eyes, which is very interesting to think about. Yes, Hilla, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, connecting these two ideas, that in clinical hypnosis, one of the hallmarks of hypnotic trance is eye fixation. And one of the things that happens in eye fixation is we lose track of time. It's one of the so when the eye can't attach itself to an object, we lose where we are in time and space. And it's one of the reasons why we go into altered states of consciousness.
Interesting. And you're saying, and you don't have that experience in the hug or the kiss.
Well, no, you can definitely have that experience in a hug and a kiss, but it's just it's an example of that when something is normally we process vision in a certain way, but when we're looking, and when two people are looking at each other's eyes, they kind of create a hypnotic state together where they're no longer able to really focus on details for things to get engraved in the brain. It goes to a different place in the brain. So I think it's a way of amplifying this idea.
Thank you. Have there been any studies on this issue that you're mentioning, the hypnotic state of vision and ideas in Torah?
I don't know about specifically ideas in Torah, but there's certainly a lot of convergence. That's a visual word.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad you said that. I didn't put the two together. Why am I saying that? Because the Rebbe is saying here, he's talking about the virtue, Yoni, of seeing vision versus holding it in your hand. So it's like it reminded me, Moshe, holding in your hand, you're hugging someone, you have them in their hand. What greater thing could there be? It's not you. You are smothering them. Great. But it's not you. When is it you? When is it engraved in you? Vision. That's what he's saying over here. Let's continue. Well, think about it. Listen, when you learn ideas in Chasidus, you hear it, and then you have to think about it. That's why this is bonus. This is a good, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes we don't understand it right away, so think about it. That's what we need to do. Let's continue. But the words that he uses, Yonason, is mitztayer v'nechkak b'sichloi. Powerful words. It becomes kind of digitalized, an image. Moshe Myers, mitztayer v'nechkak. And it's engraved in your mind. This is vision. The Rebbe says we find a similar thing with hearing. Through hearing, there's the joining of two people who are two very different, separate people. What happens? You hear someone say something, your mind, your seichel joins, it's mechubar at the time, it becomes mechubar to what was being said. So there is a hischabrus, a connectedness that comes from powerful hearing. Okay? So he spoke about vision, now he's tackling hearing. Okay? That hearing also accomplishes this idea that it becomes part of you. But you'll notice he doesn't say the words nitztayer. I don't see the word image. Imagery is through vision. Right? Here he's talking about hearing. You know, we say Shema Yisrael, the power of hearing. Right? By Matan Torah coming up in 2 weeks of Hashem Shavuos, we heard. What happens when you hear? There is a bonding. Although your friend, the other person, is totally separate from you in wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, and so too in his character, and in the approach of his soul, totally different. Totally different. Nevertheless, when he hears some wisdom idea, some intellectual idea, some smart idea, or he hears about a good trait and character, the voice, the sound, is joined of the other person, your friend, or whatever the other person speaking. Notice he says nefesh hasichlis, not nefesh abamis. Your human intellectual drive, which is the core issue that deals with intellect, and you now think and understand and comprehend what you heard, and it illuminates your mind, and you become be'achdus with your friend. The power of hearing, listening, right? Hillel knows a good therapist is a good listener. A good rabbi is a good listener. And a good fundraiser is even a better listener. One of the basic rules of fundraising is make your pitch and, shut up. You know, some people, they make their pitch and they go on, like they show insecurity. Make your pitch, put a zipper on your mouth, and now the pressure is on the person that you're looking to get the donation from. So we see the power of listening. Moshe, you do some fundraising, is in the ability to listen to the other. You know, strong pitch, quiet, and then the other person has to respond. So I'm just saying in various, what? Go ahead, Moshe. What?
I was just going to say one little
Yeah.
idea of what you just said about that.
Yeah.
There was
Baylor, what
a
time
fundraising coach once addressed a whole group of rabbis who were fundraising, and he said, when you're make the ask, just like you said, you ask for that amount, you say the thing, and he says, then you simply look into your soul. And he lifted up his leg and he looked into the bottom of his foot. The bottom of his foot. And you look at your soul, shut your mouth, you know.
Right. Let's continue. The Rebbe says, truthfully speaking, this unity, this hisachdut, that is accomplished through the powers of vision and listening, they impact. The impact is from the seer to what's being seen. So Moshe Haroya is the seer, al hanira to what he's seeing, umehanira, and from the observable, from what's being seen, al haroya on the seer. You hear that? And that's why we have to watch our eyes. The power of the eyes. It's only a little look, my friends. The nira, what's being seen impacts the raya, and it's with you, my friends. And I want to tell you something. When I was in 7th or 8th grade in high school.
Rabbi Dalfin, I'm sorry. Whoever has the iPhone, we don't know who you are, but can you please mute?
Okay.
The noise is disturbing.
Thank you. So when I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I'm now, 59, 60 almost, right? Right? I remember this like yesterday because I heard it. I wanted to show you the power of hearing. So our teacher in our English class, he brought in a movie. And it was for our history class, I think. And I still remember who was the singer and what the song was, part of the song. And I've told you in the past. It was Elvis Presley. And he sang, those boots are made for walking and walk all over you. Now, I didn't know Elvis Presley from your Huppets. That wasn't my life. And I didn't know about these rock and roll or songs. This wasn't something. And this one time that I heard it in class, I still remember it now. You see how powerful hearing is? I'm serious. I think to me that's a great example. What?
That wasn't the original one. The original one is Nancy Sinatra.
What do I know? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I remember, okay? You guys can laugh at me and it's fine because that's not my world. I don't know this world. I didn't grow up with this world. But what I just sang for you is what I remember. And the power of hearing is so powerful. So imagine if you hear a Chasidus song, a soulful song, when you're young. And this is what I always say, that we need in our house to play Chasidus Yiddish music. I don't mean today's pop music. I criticize my own kids here. They consider all these Israeli songs Jewish music. Half of it sounds like Goyish music. And it is in my books, non-Jewish music. It's not, when Avram Fried, another Reb Shlomo, these people, when they sang, they came from a certain place, they composed with a certain way, and for sure, a chassid there from Russia, or Ukraine, or Poland, or Hungary, the Kalavar Rebbe's niggin, Sola Kokashmar, and it came from a certain perspective. When your children and your grandchildren hear this music, it makes a very big impact. So let's go back to the Maamar. I'm just saying, we're talking about Shmiya, because in Riyah and Vision, as Hillel said, it's kind of easier to understand. But that's why I felt it was important to give a few examples, that even Shmiya, even hearing, it joins, there's a great Hisachdus HaNefesh, a unity of the soul, and as he says, between the two people. Let's go further. So the Rebbe says, it's so too in good matters. The The Gemara, there's a whole concept. The letters make you clever. Oisiyos of Torah, the letters, machkimos, they bring chokhmah. And this is the argument why you look into the Sefer Torah, even if you don't understand, when you're called for an aliyah, because the oisiyos machkimos. And so too when you learn, the oisiyos are machkimos. And so too, seeing godliness in a tangible way. When we talk about seeing God, okay, we think, oh, see, you can't see God, you're meditating. It's true. But the Rebbe says that you have to meditate on something gashmi. In other words, you look at the situation and you reflect back and realize the godliness there. But it takes a davar gashmi for you to look at. The mind's eye, Moshe, the mind's eye, it's the mind's eye, but the mind's eye needs to have something to apply its mind's eye to. Well, imagine your mind's eye on a celestial being that you've never seen and never heard. I remember the Rebbe once in the middle of Habrenian smiled, he broke out and he said, I've never seen an angel. We talk about angels. No, who's seen an angel? You could say Elio comes to a bris, and maybe I had this experience and it felt angel-like. That's true. But so what I'm saying is, the Rebbe says here that when you have riyas elikus bemuchash, which is of course a very lofty experience, actual seeing God, he says you still need to get it from looking at the gashmi, the physical thing, and coming to such a lofty experience that you've seen God. And that's why you might say in the Torah, when Hashem said, Moshe says, I want to see your face, and Hashem says, no human being can see my face and live. So what does Rashi say? So what did he see? Yoni saw his tefillin shel rosh, the knot of the tefillin shel rosh in the back of the head. Think about that. He couldn't see, a human being can't see Hashem because you can't survive. So what does Rashi say? So what? Acharonis, my back, the knot of the tefillin shel rosh. In other words, it still needs something physical. To see God, you need something physical. It's exactly what the Rebbe says here. So the Rebbe says, and as we said before with Hashgacha Pratis, who and how can we experience the highest lofty experience with Hashem? Through divine providence. So divine providence requires you to have a gashmistic thing, an experience in the physical world. We have a concept when it comes to hearing, the soul expires through the speech. You have a soul experience through speaking. In other words, there is speaking and there is speaking. There's some speaking which is cursory speaking, bright speaking, but it doesn't touch your soul. And then sometimes you say something, and in those words, nafshay yotza bedabrei, the soul expresses itself through your words. That's a very different type of speaking. But nevertheless, it's the speaking words which are heard, in which the other person hearing it says, he's coming from a soul perspective. And we all know that. Sometimes we hear something, it's good, it's intelligent, but it's not soulful. And sometimes we hear something and we say, that's a soulful remark. The person's coming and expressing their soul. He says sometimes the zulas, your friend, your other person can say something and impact you so much that you have what's called kleis hanefesh, cessation of the soul, expiration of the soul. You melt. Usually it ends with a cry or a laugh. You know what I'm saying? It's so powerful, where words can't handle the feeling of the neshama of the soul. The Rebbe says all this points to a joining, an achdus, a unity that comes through hearing. He brings now a proof for this idea that the one seeing with vision has an impact on what's being seen. And he quotes Shleiv HaMelech HaMishlei Kosuf, Toiv Ayin, a good eye, Hu Yevayrach. He accomplishes bracha. When someone gives you something, and he gives it to you with his whole heart, he doesn't have any jealousy. In Yiddish we have a word, farginen. You probably remember that word. He can't fargin. Fargin means, I can't stand the fact that you have such good. That's a very bad midah. And sometimes it's difficult. It doesn't come always in a coarse way. In a refined way. Well, why does he have so much good? Why is he blessed so much? Toivayin, the good eye, the one who's the opposite of the not being able to fargin, to tolerate the fact that someone else is blessed. But he has a good eye. Hu yevayrech, he creates the bracha by the other person. Look at inside. The kasha toivayim mabed aleza davar mamshich bracha. When someone who has a good eye looks at something, he draws bracha into the other situation and the other person. That's not the literal meaning of the verse. The literal meaning is that the one who has a good eye is blessed. Here, Yoni the Rebbe is saying, Toivayin, someone who has a good eye, Hu Yevayrach, he accomplishes bracha by the other person. So the Rebbe says we've now concluded kind of discussing the advantages that seeing, that vision and hearing have. He repeats and sums up his point. Through seeing and hearing is the joining of two distinct and not opposite, separate koiches. Now it goes back to the verse in Tehillim that David HaMelech says in Psalm 94. Hashem bends his ears. Haloi Ishma. You don't think he hears? Of course he does. Im Yetzer Ayin. It creates the eye. Halei Yabed. You think he doesn't see? Of course he does. Shereya Kaviyochel. And for morally speaking, God sees. Umashkiach hakol prat uprat. And He's providence over every detail. All matters that happen here on earth. They ascend and they're engraved lemaila in heaven. Everything we do is seen and heard. And remember, it makes an impact so much so that it's engraved in heaven. So now we understand an answer to the question that he asked in the beginning. What is this idea of an heavenly eye, an eye in heaven? And the idea of an ear in heaven. So the Rebbe says, this explains to us, Hashgacha Pratis. That's Hashgacha Pratis. The answer to the question is, what does it mean, a heavenly eye? It means Hashem being mashgiach, being providential in every detail of one's life. And that's why David HaMelech chose specifically these two powers of the soul, Riyah, vision, and Shmiya, hearing, because they are the two within us that join things together. So David HaMelech didn't just say God hears and God sees. He meant to say, what he was saying is that the power of seeing and hearing is expressed through Hashgacha Pratis on each detail, and that was his refutation to the philosophers who argued God is not interested in the details of Gashmis. In other words, they argued God is not providential in every detail. And David HaMelech, by quoting the eye and the ear, is saying just the opposite. And he says, V'zeu Hatei elikai oznecha, and this is the verse that he began the Maamar with, that bend your ears, oznecha, Hashem bends the ears, ushma, and hear, pekach einecha, Hashem, open your eyes, ure'ei, and see. So he's calling upon Hashem to use his ears and his vision. To see the great desolation, Rahman Litzlan, God forbid, Shal Yisrael, Bagoyla of Jews. He's referring now to Daniel. That Daniel says to Hashem. In other words, David HaMelech said it just in general. Came along Daniel, and he's already in Golus, and Daniel is saying what? That Hashem see and hear the terrible desolation of the Jewish people that are sitting in Golus. And you are divine providence. We know that. That was Daniel's tefillah. So Hashem hears it and sees it, and he comes to our salvation. To save us from any form of pain and agony. That's tzor. So I think it's a very appropriate end to this Maamar, that now, and it's a time when we're going through the difficulty of Baruch Hashem, I hear that it's really becoming better. That the Dr. Rosen here in Crown Heights, they say didn't have one patient with corona-related matters a full week, which which is a big bracha. So what the Rebbe says here, the Daniel's tefillah is happening more and more, and it should be in a way that it shouldn't come back. It shouldn't come back, the Mageifa Chas v'Sholom, because we took a big toll, and we have to learn from it, and we will learn from it. Like Chazan Helfgat, the Rabbi Chaim Helfgat is the world's greatest Chazan. He spoke at this fundraiser for the Hatzolathon they had the other night. And he thanked Hatzalah for saving his life, bringing him to NYU. He lives a block away from me, here in Borough Park. But he said, I wish I would daven Yom Kippur at Nila. I wish I would have the feeling of tshuva that I had laying in NYU, not knowing if I'm going to live or not. You understand? So there's what to walk away with, to be thankful to Hashem, and to remember as we get Baruch Hashem healed and we're back to ourselves, that don't take things for granted. And every single moment, thank Hashem and be an Eved Hashem and really live with God. And it's time to, to forget about all these trivialities and issue. I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this. Here you're talking about life and the opposite of life, and you're worried about, it's all small change, right? It's all small change. Anyway, guys, have a great Shabbos, okay?
Rabbi,
yes.
One thing, just to top off what
you
just said.
Yes.
I highly recommend everybody reading this now. This is an amazing book. It's about the Rebbe. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, Positivity Bias.
What a book. I mean, I tell you, this, especially for these times, get this book. My father gave it to me as a present. It is unbelievable. I'm not finished reading it, but it is amazing. Okay, Yoni, after you finish, share it with other people. Have a great Shabbos, everyone. We'll see you next week, Sunday. Zaygas, we'll start a new Maamar. I'll let you know which Maamar, and Moshe will send out copies, okay? Yeah.
Take care. Take care.
You're going to say something else, Yoni. You're going to say something about the...
Kawasaki?
What was it?